Okay. Graphing in intercept form. Alright, I would say the biggest advantage to intercept form, which let's write it first, it's this, y equals, there's still some constant here, and then you have x minus, it's kind of like factored form, x minus p, some other constant, times x minus, this is a q. So I'm going to put a q like that. So you'll have three numbers in this. Some number here, here, and here. And it's x minus. What does that kind of remind you of this form right here? X minus something, x minus something. Yeah. It reminds you of factoring, which is the opposite of the distributive property. Yeah. So it's kind of like factored form. So if it's given to you, the advantage is a lot of word problems like map naturally to this form, and then you can use it to solve a difficult word problem quickly. You can also pick out the x-intercepts. Can you think of, so let me write the relevant information. You have that form. The x-intercepts are, these all have trade-offs, x-intercepts are the numbers p and q. So it's actually p comma 0, because they're x-intercepts, right? So y is 0, p0, and q comma 0. Those are the coordinates, the x-intercepts. And if you know those, you can easily figure out the rest without doing too much, because the axis of symmetry is right in the middle of the x-intercepts. That's something you might not have realized, that no matter what, the vertex is centered in the middle of the two x-intercepts. So the axis of symmetry, the x-coordinate, is in the middle. So how do you take the average of two numbers? You add them up and divide by 2. So that's your axis of symmetry. So that means, I'm going to write one more comment here. The vertex, this is what you want to remember. Vertex is always in the middle of the x-intercepts. In the middle of the x-intercepts. And then we can do an example in blue ink. What might the disadvantage be then? So here's an example while you're thinking. The disadvantage might be, when would this form not be useful? Anyone think of something? Picture parabolas. Do they always have x-intercepts? No. Okay, so that would be the disadvantage. So what's your fallback if you have to graph something? What can you always go back to? Making, you could try to write it in a different form, yes, or, yeah? Okay, a different form, or you can make a table. You can always go back to that. We're just trying to avoid having to do that all the time because it's more time consuming. So let's try this. Y equals 2 x minus 4 times x plus 2. Okay, so let's write down the relevant information and then we'll graph it. So the x-intercepts are you have to take we need to do the opposite of what you see, so it's going to be positive 4 and negative 2. Okay, why the opposite? Because in the general form it's subtraction. Okay, so if you match these up, the p is 4 and the q is negative 2. Okay, so the x-intercepts are, if I write the coordinates, are 4 comma 0 and negative 2 comma 0. And then the axis of symmetry is right in the middle. So let's start by graphing this. So 4 0 and negative 2 0. I'm picturing that. So make a sketch here. So 1 2 3 4 1 2, and let's plot 4 0. so we can see this. There's a point. There's a point. But how many points do we need for a parabola? 3 will uniquely define it. Good. So the axis of symmetry goes right through the middle. So that is x equals, we take the average, 4 plus negative 2 over 2, which is 1. So at 1, this goes right through the middle. So we know the x coordinate of the vertex. How do we find the y coordinate? Plug in x equals 1. Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to plug in x equals 1 into the equation to find the y coordinate of the vertex. The x coordinate is 1. So we want the y coordinate. So the vertex, to find the vertex, plug in x equals 1. So you get y equals 2 times 1 minus 4 times 1 plus 2. So it's not that hard because it'll evaluate, order of operations. So it's just 2 times negative 3 times 3. Multiplying is negative 6 times 3 is negative 18. So we get to scale this however we want. So we'll go by 2's. Negative 2, negative 4, negative 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. So we'll go by 1's on the x-axis and by 2's on the y-axis. So 1, negative 18 is down here. So here's our 3 points, and we're ready to graph it. Sure enough, it looks a little bit, it should look a little bit narrower than the parent graph, but there we have it. And that is intercept form.